Today's guest is Sariah Bronson, who is a small business owner of 3 years, who is on a mission to empower entrepreneurs to build their business to fit their life by being the expert in their back pocket. She sees the world where small businesses thrive and provide incredible value and positive impact in our culture. So, Sariah, thank you very much for being on. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you for letting me be here. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm excited to dive into all of this stuff with you. I know we had a bit of conversation prior to actually pressing record. So why don't you just kind of give us a little bit of context on how you got to doing what you're doing right now and kind of what you're all about beyond just the bio.
Awesome. So I got into this a couple of years ago. I was a working in the solar fields industry, working 12 to 16-hour days, working my butt off. It was a new company. We were excited to see where it was going, and I was really excited. But one day I just sat there in my truck and I literally just bawled my eyes out. I was overwhelmed, stressed. It was all too much, and I simply couldn't do it anymore. So long story short, I left, went home on maternity leave, wasn't able to keep working for the company, and we parted ways. I had a friend reach out to me and offered me a unique opportunity, and so I started working from home for this company. And I was like, oh, what I can do for one company, I can do that for two companies. So I brought on another company and was doing the same stuff, and it snowballed from there. And here I am, 12 employees later, where we're helping over 10 different other businesses in their back office. And we help and support them, whether it's their marketing, building websites, social media, their finances. We do bookkeeping and payroll. And then their operations, we do HR support, and building documents and just back office support. So it's been a really fun ride and excited to see where we go from here.
Yeah,
Never imagined to be in this place. So
absolutely. I mean, probably a happy accident. Like this would definitely fall into that category. So I love that for you. Yes, I mean, definitely we can dive right into it. I know you were speaking about, okay, at least off air, I have this thing that like I said, it was a happy accident. I got into it. It's starting to like find its footing. And as part of that, so I wasn't really expecting, is I have to like guide the ship now. I have to be the leader that makes the whole thing work so that my team has a job and we can provide good things to our clients. So I know you wanted to dive into all of that. So why don't we just start with like, how do you see the whole situation with regards to leadership? Like, what does that actually mean to you
So what does it mean to be a leader?
in the context of like where you are at now?
Where am I now? So for me, being a leader in this business and stuff, is being supportive, thoughtful of those around me, seeing their needs, trying to understand how people work and the best way to get people to work together because everybody has different flows. Um, there have been several times where I thought I was communicating well, and then they came back and they were on a totally different page. And there were times that we tried to communicate through texts and emails, and then it was like, oh my gosh, I just need to call this person because this is going terribly. And so some learning curves on that side of just being like, when it's to a point where you just like, you need to talk face to face. Well, ours is virtual face to face, but all of my team members are virtual. We're based all over the US. I got quite a few here in Utah, but they are all over the place. So,
Got it. So what are you finding most challenging in doing all of that?
I'd say the biggest challenges is the balance, finding how to get people to work together properly and communicate. Like communication is huge. And when you're not in an office and can't just like interact that way and build those relationships, you have to be really intentional when it's virtually. I'm very like when we got big and I had more than like four employees, I was like, okay, we have to meet monthly. This can't just be you contacting me. Like you need to know who's on your team. You need to know what they do. You need to see their face. And so we meet virtually once a month as a whole company. Just and I'm like, cameras on, guys. This is if you're here, your camera is on because you can't build a relationship with someone you can't see. A voice, there's so much in expression and the way people talk. And if you're not in an office seeing that day to day, there's no way to build it if you're not intentional about it. And so we've had to really step up our game in being intentional with the way we meet and how we meet. And every time I try to push cameras on, lots of people are still like, oh, I don't really want to. And um, for every meeting, I try to turn mine on and be like, I'm here and I'm present in what we're doing. And this is important because when the camera's off, people could be doing who knows what.
Got it. Okay. So I mean that's I think a beautiful indicator of like some of the values that you have and how you want to like lead from the front. So if you had to dive like deeper or like one layer underneath that, what are you as the leader experiencing in terms of like challenges and problems in moving the business forward?
um, I'd say like personally, I struggle with a lot of imposter syndrome. Um, I don't have a college degree in any of the things that I do. I just have learned them and know them, and I'm always like, well, I hired the expert to know it so that I don't have to, but I still am leading these people who are experts in their field who've done this for like forever, and I'm telling them what to do. So it can be a little bit like, and then when they come to you and ask you questions, you're like, you're older than me. Why are you asking me? Or you've done this way longer than I have. Why are you asking me? But because I am the leader and I run the business, I get the ultimate say. And so they're like, well, it's your business. You need to tell me what you want. um, so that can be really hard feeling like. And then when I have clients who are running their own business as well that lean back to me, well, what do you think? And I'm like, okay, they want your opinion, so I have to roll with that.
Got it. Okay. So, I mean, I think part of this is like you also need to celebrate the fact that even though you don't have quote unquote the typical traditional credentials, you have gotten this far and you have done it successfully. You've hired people, you continue to be able to pay them, you continue to have the clients that you serve. I think that's a pretty big thing. So why is that not enough for you to justify the position that you are in?
I don't know. That's a question I keep asking myself, and I feel like maybe I'm just too judgmental on myself, but I don't know how to get out of that cycle of judging myself and feeling like unworthy. But then I could be like, look, but I'm good at this, and I know, and I can talk, and I can see the problem, and I can come up with a solution. But then that backside of you is like, there's always that little negative talk that I'm not very successful at squishing all the time.
Okay.
um, and
So
so
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that like I see it and I tell myself those things, but then I have those days where I'm like, why are you here and what are you doing?
Okay. So how is this actually affecting you day to day? Because I can understand it can be like depending on like when this comes up with clients, like this could be something that is like the equivalent of a mosquito. Like it's annoying, it's kind of ever present, but I squash it and I move on with my day and I do what I need to do. Like even though it's kind of continuous, it's not really that big of a deal. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, I have clients where it will be like, yeah, this comes up and it's like paralyzing and I can't make a big decision. I can't trust myself to do X or it just it begins to have negative consequences. So I'm just curious for you, how does imposter syndrome actually manifest day to day?
I would say day to day, most of the time it's a mosquito that I just squash and keep going. I have had days, they've been a lot less frequent, but there were days where I just literally would shut down and be like, I'm not working, I'm not like I'm not answering any phone calls. And I just, and my husband has been a great support to lean on and be like, why am I doing this? And he'd help me like walk through it and be like, you're fine. It's okay. And I'd get back to that point and be like, yes, I know that I love what I do. And so I'd say most days though, it's mostly just that mosquito, and then there's those occasional days where I'm just like, no, like no.
Okay, got it. And what would be the percentage of like shutdown to mosquito?
I'd say 90% mosquito, 10% the other one.
Okay.
I'd say this time last year, probably more of a 50-50. So I feel like this last year I've grown a lot in that area.
Beautiful. So congratulations. That's not a small thing to do. What was the shift for you to go from 50-50 to like 90-10?
Um, I think just having those breakdown moments and really trying to work through them and having amazing people that just come and tell you that you're awesome, even when you don't feel like it. And then leaning on them and being like, so many voices can't be wrong. The one in your head is the one that's messed up.
Yeah. Support system is a big thing. So I applaud you for having that as well. Because yeah, it can be the counterbalance with regards to making that switch. And you've done it successfully. So I think that that's actually a beautiful thing. So if that's not really like if 90% of the time this is a mosquito issue, like there's not really much need to dive into it, at least based off of this information. So what would be something that isn't a mosquito issue for you?
I think mostly just trusting myself. I have a lot of um negative talk that I go through. And I guess I'm scared. I'm scared to mess up. That someone would see that. And then I'd have to like I feel like I'm good at fixing my mistakes, but I hate messing up.
Okay, got it. And I see that this is like it's an emotional share for you to do this.
Yes.
So A, I want to acknowledge that. B, I know it's a very courageous thing to do, especially in this type of context. And C, like I really just want to stress, like at the end of the day, all of you is welcome because this is something that happens literally across the board, yet so few talk about it for that very same reason of like, well, I can't be seen less than, I can't be seen making mistakes, I can't be seen imperfectly. And that a lot of stuff ends up compounding through that. So I just wanted to acknowledge that by sharing and being able to like vulnerably show up in this way, you're actually helping a lot of other people just kind of normalize that experience. So anything to add to that?
Um, just that I keep trying. Try not to doubt myself too much.
Okay.
And I know that, and I tell, it's just funny. You tell your kids one thing, and then you turn around and do the opposite. I'm always like, we're humans. You're gonna make mistakes, and you're gonna mess up, and that's okay. And I'm like, why can I not take my own medicine?
Yep. Yeah. We're always our own harshest critics. So I do agree with you in that. So are you okay if we explore this a bit further? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, cool. So what's the feeling that comes up when you share that?
Anxiousness makes me anxious,
Okay.
scared, and definitely uncomfortable.
Okay. So if kind of poke into that a bit more, anxiousness and fear and being scared generally doesn't elicit tears, right? Like it's a different type of emotion. So is there something else that's behind the fear?
I don't know. I just talking about it just kind of bubbles up, and I don't even know how to describe it.
And there's no right or wrong answer, right? Like it's whatever the answer is for you, right? And even like I know we're recording this, but at the end of the day, you always have a veto card. Like if by some chance you're like at the end of this, I don't actually want this
Like,
to
don't
air.
share
I,
that.
I I will I will respect that, no problem, right? You wouldn't be the first one, so it's all good. And I'll only go as far as you want me to go with this. So just keep that in the back of your head, like while you're sharing all of these things.
Mhm.
Um, so anything that comes up for you with that, like what is the actual discomfort underneath it?
So like in stating it in like a feeling kind of way, or like what might be causing me to feel like I'm inadequate. Is that what you're asking?
Correct.
I guess someone coming along and looking at what I do and saying it wasn't good enough or I could have done better, or why would I do it that way? Getting judged, I guess, just feeling like the world is gonna judge me, and even more so, I'd say family. I'm more worried about what my family says than people I don't know.
Okay, got it. And that is a very real thing, right? Like it is the ones closest to us that we will fear the most. And in this moment right now, is anybody actually judging you?
No, they're usually pretty supportive. And
Okay.
they're usually, they see what I do and I've never heard bad things about it, but I guess I don't know why it's always been there, but even just in life things, it's always that fear of being judged or criticized that what I did wasn't good enough, or that they see it a better way and I should have done it this way instead.
Okay. So it sounds like there's a lot of internalized judgment. Like in this moment, nobody's actually judging me, but my brain defaults to kind of prejudging myself based on these things anyway.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate.
Okay. So, and I'm just picking and prodding here, and you can let me know if this resonates with you or not. It seems like because the initial feeling was like anxiousness and fear. So there is some sort of threat. Okay, well, there's obviously no physical threat to you right now, but there is a threat of being seen. And if there's a threat of being seen, it seems like underneath the fear is a lot of shame based feelings, the judgment, what will people think, etc. So like does that resonate with you or not?
Yeah, that does resonate with me.
Okay. So A, again, I thank you for sharing that and having the vulnerability to share that because that quality that you just described. So A, the shame that powers a lot of these things, it powers a lot of entrepreneurs, whether to succeed so that they can hide from the shame or whether to crash and burn because the shame's too much. It's two sides of the same coin. And then two, that inability to kind of like what is like it feels uncomfortable and it feels crappy, but I don't actually know what this is. That oftentimes drives a lot of people to do a lot of whole like just bad decisions. So before I go on, anything that lands for you with that reflection.
Yeah, I feel like once you said that word, it really kind of felt home and be like, oh, that makes sense. And I can see why it why it overwhelms me so much, and what, like feeling like I needed to not share what I'm doing with people, or like the whole social media thing really struggle with, because I'm like, people don't need to see me out there. Um really opens up a lot of more deeper thought, I think, that I haven't been able to reach.
Okay, good. So that's actually going to be one of my follow-up questions, right? Because we kind of started this whole thing being like, okay, the imposter syndrome is kind of like a mosquito thing, but I feel like now that's like a ripple effect of the shame, right? There's a core of the shame under like over that, like it's like an onion. You have, okay, well, everybody's going to judge me, therefore, like I'm unworthy in some sort of way. And then as continues to ripple out, it kind of looks like something that's imposter syndrome. But if it was just that, that would be mosquito problem. It's not that big of a deal. right?
Mhm.
So now you're kind of zooming in, you're finding the root of all of this. Inherently in and of its own, if this is all that was there, this isn't something that fun. I don't want to deal with it until it manifests into a problem inside of the business. So if you zoom out, how is this actually affecting you day to day inside of your business? How is it creating problems? Like if we could want to explore that piece.
Yeah, I feel like being able to look in deep and then go bigger, if I don't learn to work through it and see what's causing the shame or how to work through it and not see it that way, um, it'll stop me, from doing something that I need to because I'll feel like my team members are going to judge me or that a client, is going to respond badly. Um, I definitely think it could affect a lot of things and delegating things, not feeling like I have that I should, because what if they say, "Oh, you've been doing this wrong this whole time?" when you pass off a task. So it could definitely affect a lot of things, I think, in the day-to-day operations.
Okay. So I'm just gonna reflect this back to make sure I've heard it correctly. So it seems like avoidance is part of it. I will avoid delegating certain things because it might be viewed as wrong. I'm not going to give my team what they need or my clients what they need because it'll be perceived a particular way. So would that be accurate for you that like this is avoidance or like how would you put it?
Yeah, I don't think that I do it very often, but I could see where the shame could build up and then I would avoid it. I'd walk around it and I'd go somewhere else or do something different just to not have to deal with it. I can definitely see a tendency in some things that I do or handle.
Got it. So the avoidance is kind of how I handle it. Like if it gets overwhelming, it's a coping
A
mechanism.
coping method, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. In terms of the actual consequence of the shame, so you said, okay, if I don't trust myself to delegate because somebody's going to look that I've done it wrong. Basically, I guess what I'm saying is like, how would you summarize this as a problem inside of your business?
That's a problem. Um, I would say to summarize it, in not leaning in or handling it, it can cause problems in the business through the communication methods or in what's expected and how the follow through happens. If you're not willing to have those hard conversations or face the problem head on, then you're just going to make bigger and bigger circles around them instead of solving it and moving forward.
Okay, so I'm not willing to face the problem head on or have the hard conversations early or in appropriate time manner. So it seems like that has then ripple effects of the problem builds and like kind of compounds over
On
time. Is
itself,
that
yeah.
accurate? Okay, perfect. Um, Anything else with regards to that as far as like how it manifests as an issue in the business?
I don't think so. I think that is a pretty accurate outline of how it happens or how it can build up.
Okay, got it. And oftentimes when I have clients that deal with this type of, so I'm going to use the term avoidance because in this sense, like I'm avoiding the hard conversation. I'm not using avoidance in the sense of like coping. So
Uh-huh.
that's just it's just like semantics, right? So if
Okay.
I have a client that's like not facing hard conversations, is avoiding calling something out, etc. Usually the way that that impacts them then directly is some type of overwork or some type of compensation behavior. So because I'm not willing to have this conversation, it's a problem that builds. Then I have to redo certain work. I have to stay late. And because this deadline was missed, like that's the usual way that I've seen it. I'm just curious if that manifests for you in a similar way.
Yeah, there's been times where I'm like, well, I'll just do it myself. I'm not gonna tell them this wasn't what I wanted. Or I'll just, I know something where I've tried to delegate it and it didn't work. And so I'm like, I'll just do it myself. I'll stay late tonight. I'll get it done.
Okay, got it. So kind of the default solution then is I'll just do it myself instead of facing the thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, is that like a mosquito problem for you, or is that a bigger thing? Like, what percentage of your week do you think you spend?
I feel like I'm getting a lot better about that. And I haven't actually in the last 2 months have a lot of things where I delegated and then it came back and it wasn't. And I was like, okay, you can't just do this yourself. You have to get them on the same page. And it was a real like tough moment of like, you're gonna do this. Um, so it is definitely something that I still work through. And I'd say there's at least once a week where something didn't happen that way that I have to either decide to do it myself or try again. And I'm getting better at saying let's try again versus just doing it myself. Um, but I would say we're probably still in the 50-50 zone on which way I decide to go.
Okay, perfect. So, I mean, okay, then that, if we're talking about like the earlier comparison, it was like 50-50, then it changed to 90-10. This seems like it's a pretty significant thing. So, the reason I'm asking these questions is just sometimes it's hard to make like obviously when we like tap into the shame and like the root cause, like that stuff's not fun and like it feels not good, right? But it's hard to then zoom out and keep that connection of like, okay, well, this business problem that I actually know how to solve, is it actually because I don't know the right solution, or is it because of this other ripple thing? So I'm always
Yeah.
asking these questions to just make it more tangible so you can kind of see those connections and
You
see
keep
like to what
connecting them. Yeah.
magnitude is this actually happening. So if you're saying this is a 50-50 problem, like what would that be in terms of hours for you on a weekly basis? Like 5 hours, 20 hours, 2 hours, like how does it
I'd say
affect?
about 5 hours.
Okay. Okay. Got it. So 5 hours per week of like compensating.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. That makes sense. So was that something that you were aware of, or it's kind of like bringing to light a different side of this pattern?
I kind of like I've all like one of the core values for my business is communication, and mostly because I've always wanted to be a master at communicating and clearly and I would think that I had done it well, and then they'd come back and I was like, okay, apparently I didn't. So I feel like I've always kind of had it on my horizon, but I don't think I've ever correlated it the way back that you have in seeing it in that way. Um, I know that communication is not my strongest point, which is why it is a core value because I want it to be a strong point, and especially where my team is so virtual. Um, and then I have my own children. I want to communicate with them well. So I just feel like it's an area that I've had on my radar, but I definitely haven't drawn it and connected it back the way that we just did today.
Okay, perfect. So I'm glad that that's landing for you, because when I work through shame patterns with clients, oftentimes the part that really normalizes like a new sense of self for them is actually the safety of expression. So like when I am safe in expressing what I feel like is true for me, things like this, like 5 hour compensation per week, start to just decrease naturally on their own, because it's kind of like what you mentioned. I see an issue, I don't wait till it compounds, I nip it in the bud, so then there's kind of less fires I have to put out as a result of it. So it's indirect, but it translates pretty directly in terms of like I just show up more as myself, more in my truth. I can immediately handle what needs to be handled because I'm not having to deal and cope with this flash of emotions of like this, but what about this? And like just manage all the mental real estate. And then therefore I can be a lot more effective in my decision making and how I do it. So I'm just curious, like how does that land for you? Like what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, no, I like the way that you stated that and just being able to know where you're at and be in a good place to express those and in a safe place. And I really love that we're having this conversation, even though we're basically completely strangers. I always feel like it's nice to talk with someone that doesn't know me because you'll see things that family members aren't willing to say or friends are like, oh, I never noticed. um, and being able to take that aside and identify it now and be like, this is something else. I can do this and move on.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, it's come up on the podcast many times, the idea of like it's very hard to see the building when you're standing on the balcony, right? Like you need that person from the outside to be like, hey, like this is what's happening on the building and what's relevant to you. So yeah, that's
Like
a
I've got this big red circle. I don't know how you missed it, but it's right there.
yeah, from this vantage point, it's obvious, but like in the moment, like it's far from obvious. And that's why I ask all these clarifying questions to really make it real so that that connect. Because like again, it's we said it off air, but it's like that whole idea of what you can see, you can actually change. So yeah, I'm glad that this is all landing for you. Okay, so this kind of compensation, 5 hours a week, which adds up. Like that's 20 hours a month, which could be reallocated towards a lot of growth activities, et cetera. It's usually how it manifests. So this is one ripple effect of this sort of, I guess, shame root, if you want to call it. You had also mentioned like social media, like I question how I should show up, et cetera. So there's a level of visibility consequences to this as well. So I'm just curious, how does that affect you and your business?
Um, well, when it comes to, I think my holdup and hiccup with online again is like, who's gonna see it? Who's gonna comment and be like, why are you? And I looked at her profile and she's doing all this crazy stuff. Um, and so I've never been very active on social media, like ever. And then we were running social media for clients, and I was like, well, if we're doing it for other people, we should really do it for ourselves. Um, and so we have been doing it and being more active, but not a lot of it is me or my face or me doing stuff. Because like I said, it's easier to hide behind a white screen with words on it than your face on it. Um, and I think seeing maybe where this is stemming from, um, could maybe help me step over that and work through that to be in a better place.
Yeah, 100%. And again, right, it goes back to the expression bit, right? So I want to walk my talk. I want to be in integrity with regards to like if I'm doing social media, I want to be active on it. I want to lead from the front and show what that looks like. Absolutely makes sense. And the part that holds me back is I can't, like, I don't feel comfortable expressing whatever my truth is with regards to, how I want to talk about my business. Sometimes it's like how great I am and like this is the cool stuff that we do. There's like holdbacks of that. And that expression is essentially suppressed down by these prejudgments of who's going to see it, et cetera, et cetera. So again, what lands for you from that expression or reflection?
I feel like you're really good at nailing it on the head. um, I definitely feel like that just it's it basically just sums up everything that I was going through without thinking about it that way. I hadn't articulated it to myself in such a way. Um, and so I feel like looking at it now, I can definitely take different steps that can help me do better in those areas.
Okay. So I'm glad that it's landing. And if you look at the visibility problem, so one of the problems of that is okay, well, I'm not in integrity with regards to the stuff that we're doing versus how I'm showing up. Are there any other ripple effects of that? Like, are there consequences in terms of I'm not getting as much business as I feel like I could be? Like, what, how does that all manifest for you?
I definitely feel like I could be getting a lot more clients and stuff, and that has been a huge struggle. Getting myself in front of the right people, and then being willing to actually say something in front of the right people. Um, I have taken some steps to start networking and reaching out and going to events, um, and so it's exciting but scary. Um, and I think as I continue to push forward and move through it, that will open up a whole new world. Um, as long as I'm willing to push myself and grow.
Got it. Okay. So there's a lot of that like pushing, coping energy of like I feel all this resistance on the days that I can push myself through it, I'll get something out, but there's not a lot of like man, like I'm just really excited to get out there and like talk about all the great things that we do.
Yeah,
That
it's I actually went to a lady and got some coaching lessons last year for a couple of weeks on actually standing up in front of people. And I get so nervous and I say a lot and I blink a lot and I twitch my hands a lot. And so there are things that she's like, you need to do this more. And I'm like, I know.
okay, got it. So, A, thank you for sharing that. And I think it's a beautiful example of something that comes up quite a bit, which is we default to solving the surface level problem. So like in that instance, what I'm interpreting is, okay, well, I had these communication issues with regards to like how I enunciate, how I present, how I show up, which is beautiful. I think that's important. And
Right.
the root behind why that isn't sticking is actually before I even start, there's a part of me internally that's freaking out that I'm going to be judged at every single thing. So I have to get every single out. I have to filter what I say, how I say it, or there's just a lot of internal like push and pull.
Back end stuff that you have to work through that if I conquered that first, then moving forward in that way would be lot more beneficial and a lot less forward and back and forward and back and forward and back.
Correct. Right. Like that's when the skill learning can shine because then it's you're authentically practicing the skill without the distortions of, in this instance, a lot of these shame patterns. Right. So does that make sense in that
Yeah,
instance?
no, that makes way sense. And I always get about like, I'm like, I did these things and I stood up in front of people and I still feel like I'm back to square one.
Well, to just add nuance to that, I would say it's probably the judging voice of like, I did all this stuff and it still didn't work. Like, why did I screw up? The thing is, you actually practice the skill, but it's like you're trying to do the skill while wearing like 100-pound vest.
Yes.
Like your ability to do the skill is going to be hindered by the fact that you're carrying all this baggage while doing it. So it's like you can express the skill a lot easier if you just took the vest off. And I know it's a simplistic way to look at like if you could eliminate your shame like you would, and we wouldn't be having this conversation, but it's like that's the experience that you're having, and it's not fair to yourself to discount the fact that the skill is there, it's good, and it can be a lot better expressed when you work to eliminate the weight, but don't discount the skill that you've built in that process. So anything else to add to that?
No, I just, it feels so true. Like it's so like hearing you say it is exactly what was going on, and I didn't even realize it.
That's okay. You're in the right place, so it's all good. So anyway, I want to just kind of begin to move this to a close, just be respectful of your time, right? Like I'm just looking at my notes right now. The biggest thing from this conversation, obviously, the root of it is like a lot of the shame stuff. The way that I've seen this manifest inside of your business is okay, so 5-ish hours a week I'm spending compensating for stuff that I generally don't express. And then I hold back on my expression in terms of visibility, networking, social media. So to me, like when I look at that, it's like, okay, well, that's actually the profit and time leaks that these shame patterns are causing. So 20 hours a month that I could reallocate towards business building, but then when I try to even reallocate that to business building, there's this part that holds me back to actually express all of my magnificence in that. So before I go on, like is that accurate to you? Is there something you would
Yeah.
add to that?
No, that feels very accurate. I think you summed it up really nicely.
Okay. And how does that land for you, kind of hearing it in this different way?
A little hard to see it in a different light. Um, but at the same time, it's a little bit freeing to know that I can look at it this way now.
Okay. I think it's also important to know what's on the other side of that. Like I know it can get heavy to just be like, okay, well, this is wrong and this is wrong and this is wrong. But what's on the other, like if you eliminated these shame patterns that drive these profit and time leaks, who do you think you would be without these patterns in place?
The leader I wanted to be.
Okay. If you get more specific with that, what does that actually mean to you?
I would say I would be courageous and positive and uplifting others, that I'd be able to make an impact in the lives of people like I wanted to.
Okay. So that's the pull version of all of this, right? I don't want to beat myself out of these patterns, which is just kind of re-triggering the whole thing. But this is the pull version of it, to be the leader that does this for people that
Like I need to see who I can be so that I can change who I am.
correct, right? So that's kind of the flip side of this coin. So anything else you wanted to add to that?
I don't think so. I think
Okay,
that's a really good summary.
perfect. So I know this was heavy to kind of look at maybe in this detail or with this mirror. So again, I want to acknowledge you for doing all of that and really just say that this is so much more common than we are always led to believe in like the highlight reel of social media. So I also just applaud you for allowing yourself to do this because it's like in direct opposition of what I'm sure your whole system is like, yeah, don't do this and don't be judged this way. Okay, so I want to acknowledge you for that. Um, yeah, so in terms of mapping this out, does this feel complete for you? Or is there still something left outstanding?
No, that feels pretty complete.
Okay, so if you want to close this off and let everybody know where to find you, who's the best person to find you, floor is yours for that.
Okay. Best place to find me is silverprosolutions.com. If you want to contact me, then it's just silverprosolutions.com/contact us. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Would love to connect with people, and I'm all about just trying to build a small community of business owners that, like you, can share and really travel this journey together, because it's not easy to be a small business owner, and I think that we can learn from each other and really boost each other on the way, and so we can help change that statistic that we all drop off within a year or 5 years, and make this country even greater from all of our efforts.
Love it. Awesome. Well, as always, we'll include those in the show notes. Sariah, thank you very much for being on. And for everybody else listening, we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you for having me. It was great to get to chat with you.